Max Holloway gets the win in round 1 due to a Conor McGregor knee injury. To come back after 5 years away.
I mean, that's not it. What it is you tried a crazy move. You tried a jumping roundhouse kick. The way he landed, he threw the kick and he landed with his knee in the worst position. You don't do that. It might have been the game plan to just charge out. And look, he threw the kick with the broken leg.
It's like somebody took my candy from me. I'm just so sad.
What's going on? Oh.
God, both guys are probably just so fucking sad. Oh God, I hope Conor doesn't go off the fucking deep end, and if he does, I hope he calls me and asks me to join him, because I would love to. I would love to fucking partake in off the deep end with you. If you need a mate, fucking let me know.
What the fuck was that?
Did he pull a hamstring? Because it didn't look like the knee was compromised.
What the fuck was that?
Yeah, the chat saying maybe he blew a hammy running at him. Yeah.
That was the goofiest way to start a fight.
Yeah, just have Patty walk out right now. And have Max and Patty fight.
Oh, look at totally told that's what.
Is a tough sport. Okay, it is one of the toughest sports on the planet, but it's also one of the best and one of the most rewarding. And Conor McGregor's had an incredible career. What he's done for this sport really is incredible. The fever around Las Vegas this week was wild. The excitement for Conor McGregor coming back after all this time, 5 years away from the sport, after breaking his leg, was at an all-time high.
Dana, can you, I think we're all trying to process everything. I guess, can we get your immediate thoughts? It felt like, honestly, one of the best fight cards of all time, and then we get to this weird main event ending. So I guess your immediate thoughts as you sit there right now.
Yeah, listen, everybody who knows anything about the fight business, and it's been a big topic of discussion leading up to this fight. 5 years off in this sport is rough. And like you said, great card, unbelievable. I mean, the Paddy Pimblett thing right before, you just feel it all in the air. Here we go. I mean, I was expecting at least a one-round war, or, you know, who knew what Conor was capable of as far as cardio or whatever else after a 5-year layoff. And, well, there you go. I mean, we're assuming blown ACL. I'm no doctor, but that's what I figured when I saw it, and doctors think the same thing too.
I was going to ask you, have you had a chance to talk to Conor? It sounds like you've talked to the medical team. Have you talked to Conor? Do we know exactly the extent of what happened?
I haven't. Is he coming out here? We'll see. I don't know. Yeah, I don't know.
I think he left the arena right.
Then the answer is no. We'll find out when he gets an MRI.
Max said right away, like, hey, man, well, now we got to set this thing up for a trilogy, right? I mean, is there any desire from that, from your point? I mean, you know promoting better than anyone. Like, does that even make sense to do a trilogy right now? Or the way that ended, do you have to go a different direction?
I don't even know. I don't know. You know, you got to take some time. And I don't know if you know this or not, but I don't like talking about making fights the night of the fight. But definitely not in this scenario.
The atmosphere inside that arena had been crackling with intensity throughout the entire evening. UFC 329's International Fight Week event had been delivering spectacular action from the opening bell onward. Knockouts, unpredictability, pure voltage, the audience was absolutely charged. The occasion already carried the weight of something destined to be remembered long before the main event even kicked off. McGregor emerged sporting a freshly cut mohawk, an intentional visual throwback to his earliest fighting days, a bold declaration through imagery alone that he was returning to his original essence. The spectacle surrounding his entrance was enormous, the crowd's roar was deafening, and then the opening bell sounded. McGregor exploded forward across the octagon without hesitation, immediately launching himself into a jumping, spinning kick within the very first instant of his highly anticipated return to competition. The technique didn't connect, and as his right leg came back down to establish his base, catastrophe struck. The knee gave out beneath him. McGregor collapsed to the canvas, his face twisted in pain. He pushed himself back to his feet, then went down once more. He attempted to launch another kick, but his leg completely failed to support his body weight. Referee Mike Beltran observed the situation carefully. Holloway himself actually turned toward the official and gestured for the contest to be halted. McGregor protested, shaking his head emphatically. He desperately wanted to continue fighting, but his physical body had already rendered a verdict that his warrior's spirit absolutely refused to accept. The bout was officially stopped at 1 minute and 9 seconds into the opening round. Max Holloway was awarded a technical knockout victory due to injury, and in that sudden moment, the entire comeback narrative was finished before it had any real chance to develop. Joe Rogan was providing live commentary, and his immediate response in those seconds captured the entire tragedy without requiring elaborate technical breakdown. Rogan instantly broke down what he witnessed, observing that the jumping spinning kick, which was literally the very first offensive movement McGregor attempted, placed catastrophic stress on the weight-bearing knee when the strike failed to land properly. He characterized it as an incredibly risky technique to initiate a fight with, and he explained that when the supporting leg establishes contact with the canvas incorrectly during that particular movement, the knee joint ends up torqued into the absolute worst biomechanical position possible. Rogan's assessment was straightforward and brutally honest. This was not some random misfortune that appeared from thin air. The decision to throw that specific kick at that precise moment, executed with that level of explosive intensity, inherently carried substantial danger.
I mean, that's not it. What it is you just tried a crazy move. You tried a crazy move, you tried a jumping roundhouse kick, and when you're in that position, when you throw that jumping roundhouse kick, if you don't land in a good way with the supporting leg, you put so much pressure on that knee. The way he landed, he threw the kick, he jumped up, he threw it, and he landed with his knee at the...
Daniel Cormier contributed a completely different and profoundly personal lens to the commentary team. DC, himself a former simultaneous champion in 2 UFC weight divisions who has experienced that exact cage pressure countless times, spoke about what it genuinely feels like to step back into competition following an extended layoff. He broke down how when a fighter has been removed from active competition for a prolonged stretch and finally walks back through those octagon doors, the adrenaline surge feels like an explosion detonating inside your entire system. Every single nerve ending is firing at maximum capacity. The sensory experience becomes overwhelming, and he theorized that McGregor, making his return after a full 5-year absence from active fighting, may have been so completely consumed by that neurochemical tsunami that he executed something he absolutely would not have attempted under standard competitive circumstances. That opening explosive technique was not a deliberate component of any calculated strategic approach. It was the wild, uncontained force of a fighter who had been kept away from competition for half a decade and was suddenly unleashed with absolutely devastating results.
Careful when we judge, because there have been times where people have done crazy things to start fights and they've worked, and we praise the athlete as if they're some genius. Tonight was one of those times that it didn't work. I remember Fabricio Verdum just running across the octagon and super kicking Travis Brown like he was on the game double.
What makes this entire narrative cut so much deeper is the haunting parallel it carries with history. Conor McGregor's original bout against Max Holloway back in 2013, the exact fight that secured his second victory inside the UFC, concluded with McGregor sustaining a torn ACL in his knee. He pushed through the injury and secured the win anyway. He battled through the damaged ligament, earned the decision victory, and kept the injury completely concealed until afterward. That became a legendary story the mixed martial arts community repeated for years as definitive evidence of McGregor's incredible mental fortitude and true fighter's heart. 13 years later, in this long-awaited rematch, another knee, another devastating injury. This time around, there was no possibility of concealment. This time, there was absolutely no fighting through the damage. The physical body that once seemed to defy biological limitations had finally reached its breaking point. Dana White spoke to assembled media members at the post-fight press conference, and his remarks carried a sobering tone. He acknowledged that 5 years removed from active competition in this particular sport represents a genuinely massive span of time. He said his personal expectation had been for at least one round of intense action and that nobody truly knew what version of McGregor remained. Then he validated what the instant replay footage had already strongly indicated. The prevailing medical assessment among the UFC's healthcare staff pointed toward a completely blown ACL, a fully ruptured anterior cruciate ligament at 37 years of age, in a sport that already extracts such tremendous physical cost from its athletes, is far from a minor complication. It represents a potentially career-altering injury, and absolutely not in any manner that anyone would have hoped for.
Historically, you've always said you never encourage a fighter to retire unless you're really taking a lot of punishment. But when you see Conor, who is suffering injury after injury, obviously the leg break and then the broken toe, and now what looks to be a potential ACL one. At what point do you think that maybe you should listen to your body and call it a day?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly. I do feel that way, but it's the guys that start saying, I've been thinking about retiring, and the minute you start talking or thinking about retiring, you absolutely, positively should. I haven't heard that from him yet, but he hasn't spoke publicly yet. We'll see what he has to say. I don't know. We'll see how this whole thing plays out. There's a lot of unanswered questions right now that will play out over the next several days, and that's why I don't come into these things and start, talking about the future. I don't know.
McGregor did not make himself available to media members following the fight. He declined to participate in any post-fight Octagon interview. He exited T-Mobile Arena and went directly into a waiting vehicle, clearly limping noticeably, actively refusing crutches, according to eyewitness accounts. Several hours afterward, he emerged on his social media platforms with a brutally honest, completely unfiltered public statement. He expressed that his head gasket had completely blown, that he had entered the fight with absolutely zero existing injuries, that he had been drilling those exact same kicks repeatedly throughout his entire training camp, and even in the staging area immediately before his walkout, that this catastrophic failure appeared completely without warning, and that he currently existed in what he described in his own exact words as beyond dark, characterizing the entire experience as absolute hell. It was absolutely not the statement of someone already strategizing his next career move. It was unmistakably the statement of an individual sitting amid the wreckage of something he cannot yet fully comprehend or emotionally process. The stark contrast with Holloway's response could not possibly have been more dramatic. Max Holloway carried himself with complete dignity from the exact moment the official stoppage occurred. He addressed the crowd and asked them to show appreciation for McGregor. He openly acknowledged that Conor had actively refused to surrender and had continuously requested to keep fighting. He demonstrated authentic human compassion, stating he was simply praying for the guy as a fellow person. And then, predictably, Holloway immediately requested a third fight, because naturally that's exactly what he did. Holloway versus McGregor has now transformed into a narrative without genuine resolution on two separate occasions, and Holloway has already publicly indicated his willingness to wait until the year 2027 to settle it definitively, if McGregor successfully recovers and chooses to continue his career. But that represents the genuine question now looming over absolutely everything. Will Conor McGregor ever compete inside the octagon again? The complete medical picture remains uncertain at this moment. An ACL rupture typically requires at minimum an entire year of rehabilitation and almost certainly surgical intervention. Some medical experts who analyzed the available footage publicly suggested the injury mechanics may actually be more consistent with a meniscus tear, which carries a considerably shorter recovery timeline. Other specialists raised the possibility of multiple anatomical structures being compromised simultaneously, given the biomechanics of how the landing occurred. The definitive diagnosis will emerge from medical imaging studies, and until that information becomes available, everything remains educated speculation. But what absolutely is not speculation whatsoever is this reality. McGregor has now reached 37 years of age. He has now suffered a catastrophic broken left leg in 2021 and a suspected completely torn right ACL in 2026. He has been removed from active competitive fighting for the vast majority of the past 9 years, and his official record inside the UFC octagon since 2018 now reads just 1 victory against 3 defeats, with all 3 losses occurring by stoppage. Multiple prominent voices throughout the combat sports media landscape have highlighted the larger question this result necessarily raises regarding what any McGregor return could realistically accomplish, even assuming complete physical recovery. The competitive environment has evolved dramatically during his extended absence. His physical body has absorbed tremendous accumulated damage across a fighting career that was structurally never designed for extended longevity. The star power aura undeniably remains intact in terms of commercial drawing power, as clearly demonstrated by the absolutely massive financial gate this particular fight generated. But mystique and legitimate competitive capability are 2 fundamentally different concepts, and those who analyze this sport with real depth are observing that the distance between those 2 separate realities has never appeared more substantial than it did on Saturday evening. Holloway, in terms of his own future trajectory, actually emerges looking like the significantly bigger winner here. He has now officially defeated McGregor in the permanent record books, even though the actual manner of victory was absolutely not what either competitor wanted or envisioned. He continues to function as a major attraction at the absolute highest competitive level. He has demonstrated authentic warmth and genuine sportsmanship during an extremely difficult circumstance, and he keeps constructing a legacy that does not require any controversial finish to feel completely legitimate. And then there exists Paddy Pimblett, who submitted Benoit Saint-Denis in 52 seconds on that same fight card and immediately declared to the cameras that McGregor is finished and that the new generation has arrived. Whether Pimblett actually delivers on that magnitude of declaration over sustained time remains completely uncertain. But the unmistakable energy of generational transition inside that arena was impossible to ignore. What transpired at UFC 329 was authentically one of the most emotionally devastating outcomes in recent combat sports memory. Not because of violence or total dominance or a completely one-sided destruction, but specifically because of how sudden, how bizarre, and how profoundly anticlimactic the entire sequence actually felt. The most significant comeback in UFC history lasted exactly 69 seconds. The most eagerly anticipated main event in years concluded in absolute stunned silence, and a fighter who once appeared capable of bending the entire sport around his personal will was assisted toward the exit for the second occasion in 5 years. McGregor himself characterized his current mental and emotional state as absolute hell, and right now, absolutely nobody throughout the combat sports world is challenging that assessment. So here stands the question for everyone watching this analysis. Do you genuinely believe Conor McGregor will ever step into the UFC octagon for competition again? And if he does successfully heal and stages another return, do you think there still exists any version of this entire story that concludes differently for him? Let us know your exact position in the comments section below. If you want to remain completely current on every significant development in this ongoing story, the complete injury updates, the professional fallout, what materializes next for both McGregor and for Holloway, make absolutely certain you subscribe and activate notifications. We provide comprehensive coverage of every dimension of combat sports as events unfold in real time, and this particular story is absolutely far from reaching its conclusion.